Hey, this is Frank Yosa, CEO of Ketone, and I thought I'd make for a nice little backdrop, my son's leftover Halloween stuff as we head into December here shortly. So I want to talk about dialing in your protocol and how you shouldn't be doing it on race day. I've talked about that multiple times. It's not one of those things like caffeine that you can just easily just grab and go. It takes a while. It takes figuring it out. It takes different amounts for different people's body, different levels of sensitivity. Some people take half a capful, 2.5 mLs. Some people will take 100 mLs, and it's a completely different protocol. And recently I just talked to someone who said that they took three full bottles, a female, three full bottles, one bottle at each stage of their Ironman race. And she thought that it worked pretty well. But then, when I hear that it worked, pretty well, that's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be noticeable when you are able to nail it. And what happened was, I went ahead and asked her, I said, did you feel a little bit flat on your runs? Like you just didn't have, you had low blood sugar and flat on your runs? And she said, yeah, I did. And I said, ironically, did you feel at the end of your race that you had no lactic acid? So you didn't have the super heavy leg feeling that you normally have, but then you felt flat. So you have this weird, one benefit, but then one negative. So then that's why she wasn't quite sure whether, it worked or not. And she said, yeah, I felt flat, yet I did not have the lactic acid. I didn't have that pop, and that pop is the glucose. So then I said, it's fun to predict these things. And then I said, and then the next day you just didn't feel sore or half as sore as you might normally have felt after an Ironman. And she said, yeah, I just, probably just thought it was a coincidence. So this is common. So in order to, and they think, oh, I just thought it was easy, just take a bottle and that's that. It does the work for you. No. It's a fine balance between glucose and carbs, too much ketone, and they kind of compete with each other. A little bit too much ketones or a lot too much ketones will drive your blood sugar down too much and give you that flat sensation. But then it really helps your recovery for the next day, which doesn't help you if you're, doing some sort of championship race. So it's really important to get that dialed in practice. Taking weeks, actually more like months, to figure out exactly the right amount for your, for your body type. It can even include changing your morning diet routine, which really freaks people out. It depends whether you're doing the microdosing protocol, which is just a small amount, and then that you have to do empty stomach. And then people say, absolutely no way, there's no way I can run on an empty stomach for that many hours. Well, I just ask you to try it once and see what happens in a 2 to 3 hour run, and then we can adjust for longer runs. But then the dual fuel protocol, where you take a lot of glucose and food, and then you take the ester, you then have to get that dialed in so you're not taking too much ester, but that requires 5 to 10 times more ketone ester than the microdosing protocol. So the microdosing protocol is much more attractive from a cost standpoint as well. But some people, cost is no object, but even then too much ester can impair performance. Another thing I just kind of got ironed out or just figured out is that the ester works exponentially better at altitude and with hills. So there was a few anecdotal mentions of, when I was going up the hill, I was just walking past other people. And another person who's more elderly, not even an athlete, said that he decided to just start walking up this escalator that was a super long escalator, and just was passing people when normally they wouldn't ever walk. And that's what the ester does. It fuels the mitochondria of the slow twitch muscles, which are exponentially used more in things that are more like hills as opposed to a downhill sprint. The sprints will need more glucose. I've even told people that are doing 1 hour cycling crit races that you're going to have to, this drink it's complex. You're gonna have to change your sprint protocol. So yes, it is a sprint. You can still use the esters, but you might change. If you're waiting and you decide to sprint at the same time as everyone else and they're all hitting top speed, you're likely going to lose because they're going to have more glucose in their system for that top speed. But if you change your strategy and let's say you go out a few minutes before where people know, wait a second, that person won't be able to last that long, you go out a little bit before, and you'll have 50% less increase in lactic acid, so that you'll be able to hold on. It might be a drastic change in your protocol of how you not your protocol, your strategy on on these shorter 1 hour races, but even all the way down to an 800 meter race, a 1 mile race, the marathon, all those things, even though they are speed intensive, there's also usually with the shorter races there'll be there'll be not intervals, but you'll have qualifying rounds. So by taking the ester, your level of freshness will be drastically different between races, so that has some value, but also just the decrease in lactic acid at the end. But you might have to go out a little bit earlier than usual, and you have to test all these things out in practice to make sure that they they work for you. So yep. And one last thing, I told this story about the disaster marathon protocol, but I don't think I necessarily, or disaster race, because this marathoner changed the protocol from what worked to practice to game day. The update on him was that he then decided to take the ester just during the week before. And that weekend he was able to have a PR, 18-month PR on his marathon run, and he didn't even take the ester on game day. So that's another strategy if you're really short and close to the game day, is you don't take it on game day, but you take it the week up to it. So the ester fuels the mitochondria, the deep cellular level of your muscles. So by fueling the mitochondria the week beforehand, it actually does have a little bit of it has a loading effect that can propel you into game day. So it's a lot less risky taking it during the week before, and even the night before, even a half a capful the night before. But taking it the week before and have it in your system, that marathoner just reported that the energy was just there, and it was, he vows it was not a placebo, but does it really matter? He did much better. And so yeah, take it the week before, a couple times a day, before your run, after your run, small quantities, just to kind of get it in your system. And I think you'll notice when it comes to game day. All right, well, my email is frank@ketone.com. We also have a Facebook support group where people post, hey, this is the sport that I'm doing. I'm keto, I'm not keto, because people think that this is just for keto athletes. It's actually designed for non-keto athletes. And they'll share their protocols of what worked and what didn't work as well. So that's on ketone.com. Click on community. That'll take you to the Facebook group. But you can also email me directly, frank@ketone.com. Thanks.